have so many connections to Memphis, but I want you
Yeah.
to look to your right. I
Yeah.
want you to see that picture
Yes.
from 1971. You
Right.
got an unbelievable honor yesterday.
Yeah.
It was already alluded to,
Yeah.
but this is the first time this award has ever been given. It was given to him, and it's named after him
Yeah.
for people who have unwavering generosity and support to St. Jude. And this is now in your honor.
They called it a broken swing. The textbooks would have failed it on every page. The stance was wrong. The grip was wrong. The ball flight was wrong. And yet, the record it built has never been broken. Golf has always belonged to a certain kind of person. The kind who grew up on private fairways. The kind who had coaches before they had calluses. The kind who was handed the game as a birthright before they were old enough to understand what a privilege that was. Lee Trevino was not that kind of person. And if you love watching someone take a sport built for the privileged and flip it completely upside down, hit the hype button and give this video some hype right now, because that is this story. He grew up right next to the game, not inside it, separated by about 100 yards and everything that 100 yards can mean when one side has electricity and the other does not. That enormous gap between him and the world he wanted to reach is exactly what made him impossible to stop. How does a boy with no lessons, no money, and no name build a swing that every expert calls wrong, then use that exact swing to beat the best golfer alive twice at the same major in back-to-back years? And how does that same man come back from a lightning strike that stopped his heart to win another major nearly a decade later? That question is where this story begins, and the answer will stay with you. On December 1st, 1939, Lee Trevino was born in Garland, Texas. He grew up in East Dallas in a 3-room shack with no electricity and no indoor plumbing. His mother raised him. His grandfather, who worked as a gravedigger, helped raise him too. He never knew his father. By the time he was 5 years old, he was already working in cotton fields. He was not going to school. He was not playing youth golf. He was working because the family needed him to. And here is the part that makes this story feel almost designed. That shack sat about 100 yards from the 7th fairway of the Dallas Athletic Club, one of the finest golf courses in Texas. Rich men hit perfect shots on manicured grass every single day, and a barefoot kid watched from the other side of a fence that might as well have been a wall. An uncle gave him a discarded club. That was his starting point. Not a lesson, not a set of irons. One old club from someone who no longer wanted it. He started caddying at Glen Lakes Country Club at age 8, earning about $30 a week, carrying bags for the same kind of men who had everything he did not. Then he dropped out of school in the 8th grade to work at a driving range. Every single day, after his shift ended, he hit at least 300 golf balls. Not 50, not 100, 300 every day. No one told him how to hold the club. No one told him where to aim. He figured it out by doing it over and over again until something worked. That process of self-teaching built something the traditional pipeline never could. Because no coach was correcting him, he kept whatever felt natural. His stance opened wide to the left. His club face stayed aimed at the target. His wrists held firm through the shot instead of rolling over. Most self-taught players end up hooking the ball. The hook, where the ball curves hard to the left, is the most common and damaging shot under pressure. Trevino engineered a swing that made the hook almost impossible. He built what is called a power fade. Here's the simple version. His feet, hips, and shoulders all pointed left of the target, but his club face aimed straight at the target. He swung the club down the target line, not along the direction his body was pointing. The ball would start left, then drift gently back to the right, every single time. Reliable, controlled, built for wind. He grew up hitting shots on the dry plains of El Paso, with wind coming from every direction, and his swing used that wind instead of fighting it. There was also a move in his downswing that researchers later compared to Ben Hogan. Trevino let his lead heel lift off the ground during the backswing, which allowed his hips to turn completely. Then, at the start of the downswing, that heel dropped back to the turf. That simple drop acted like a trigger. It pulled his knee sideways, cleared his hips, and let his hands fall into the perfect delivery slot. Ground forces generated the speed. His back stayed protected. His timing became automatic. It was a swing built entirely by accident and experimentation that turned out to be biomechanically brilliant. But before any of that could be tested on a professional tour, Trevino needed something that a driving range alone could not give him. Something that would harden his mind in a way no golf academy ever could. At 16, Trevino was working at Knollwood Golf Club in Irving, Texas, when a police officer stopped him. A friend had hidden stolen hubcaps in the trunk of his car, and Trevino was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The officer made a a choice. Instead of letting it go further, he pointed Trevino toward a military recruiter. Trevino enlisted in the Marines in December 1956. He served 4 years as a machine gunner with the 3rd Marine Division, reached the rank of corporal, and was discharged in December 1960. The Marines gave him physical conditioning, structure, and daily discipline. He woke up early, worked hard, and followed a regimen that turned a teenager from the Texas cotton fields into someone built for high-stakes competition. He also got chances to play golf with officers. For a young man who had grown up on the outside looking in, that access meant everything. The gap between his background and serious competitive golf started to close. After his service, he settled in El Paso and worked as a club professional while sharpening his game on municipal courses, including Tennyson Municipal Golf Course in Dallas and a place called Hardy's Pitch and Putt. To survive financially, he gambled on golf. Not casual bets, real pressure. As he famously put it, real pressure is not playing for a major championship. Real pressure is playing for $10 when you only have $2 in your pocket. That kind of pressure sharpens your game faster than any practice drill. Every shot has consequences. There is no safe round. There is no practice mode when your rent depends on the next putt dropping. And when local players stopped gambling against his wedge game because they kept losing, Trevino found a solution that became one of the most extraordinary stories in golf history. He grabbed a 32-ounce glass Dr. Pepper bottle, not a Coke bottle, not a club. He chose Dr. Pepper specifically because of its smooth, straight cylindrical shape. Coke bottles at the time had that hourglass curve, which made the strike angle unpredictable. Trevino wrapped adhesive tape around the neck of the bottle to create a handle, then wore an inside-out left-handed glove on his right hand to improve his grip. He would toss the golf ball into the air with one hand and strike it baseball style with the bottle. He could send it 100 yards. He could shape the ball flight. He could add backspin. For putting, he stood croquet style and used the flat bottom of the bottle to roll it between his legs. He hustled players for nearly 4 years under rules where he won all tied holes. He never lost a single match. Think about what that built in his hands and his mind. He was solving one of the most complex athletic problems in all of sport, hitting a small ball accurately at distance, using a glass bottle with a tape handle. His hand-eye coordination reached a level that no practice range drill could ever teach. When he finally picked up a real club after all those years, it must have felt like cheating. He entered the professional tour with almost nothing. No financial backing, no famous coach, no country club pedigree. At the 1967 US Open at Baltusrol, he finished 5th as a complete unknown. Nobody knew his name. Then, in 1968, at the US Open at Oak Hill, the 28-year-old Trevino won his first major. He shot 69, 68, 69, 69, a total of 275. He became the first player in US Open history to card all 4 rounds in the 60s. The golf world watched in something close to stunned silence. Here was a man in bright colors, cracking jokes with the gallery, talking constantly, laughing between shots, playing a swing that looks like someone invented it in a parking lot without ever reading a single instruction. And he was the United States Open champion. The sport had never seen anything quite like it. His humor was not just personality, it was strategy. He talked because it kept his body loose. A relaxed body produces a more fluid, consistent swing under pressure. His chatter also broke the quiet, rhythmic concentration his opponents needed. He turned serious tournament rounds into something closer to a neighborhood match play game. Some of them simply could not handle it. Nobody found it harder than Jack Nicklaus. Nicklaus was the greatest golfer alive. He was organized, meticulous, and relentlessly precise. He built his entire game on silence, deep concentration, and controlled power. He planned every tournament like a military campaign. He and Trevino were complete opposites in every single way, and they kept colliding at the biggest moments on the biggest stages. At the 1971 US Open at Marion Golf Club, they finished 72 holes tied. That meant an 18-hole playoff. As they stood on the first tee under enormous pressure, Trevino reached into his golf bag and pulled out a realistic rubber snake his daughter had placed there as a prank. He tossed it at Nicklaus. Nicklaus laughed. The tension broke. Trevino stayed loose all day and shot 68, winning by 3 strokes. His opponent had the most famous game face in golf, and Trevino diffused it with a toy snake. The following year, they met again at the 1972 Open Championship at Muirfield in Scotland. Nicklaus had already won the Masters and the US Open earlier that year. He arrived in Scotland as possibly the hottest golfer in the history of the sport up to that moment. He was chasing the calendar Grand Slam, winning all 4 majors in a single year. Nobody had ever done it. Muirfield was the 3rd leg, and Trevino was in his way. In the 3rd round, Trevino birdied the final 5 holes, including holing a bunker shot on 16 17 and chipping in from 30 feet on 18 for a round of 66. Short game at its most spectacular. Then came the final day. Trevino was tied with Tony Jacklin as they played the par 5 17th. Trevino drove into a bunker, struggled to get the ball near the green, and found himself in the rough, lying 4 shots, with Jacklin on the putting surface with a birdie chance. Trevino appeared to be handing the championship over. He walked up to his ball casually and chipped toward the hole. The ball went in, just like that. An improbable par from a nearly impossible position. Jacklin was shaken badly. He 3-putted from 18 feet for a bogey, then bogeyed the 18th as well. He later said Trevino's run of miraculous chips knocked the stuffing out of him and permanently altered his career trajectory. Trevino won the championship. Nicklaus finished 1 stroke behind. The Grand Slam dream ended. Throughout all of this, there was one place where Trevino refused to belong, and not because of his game. Augusta National, home of the Masters, was built on traditions Trevino had no interest in accepting. The club's longtime chairman, Clifford Roberts, ran it like a private kingdom. Trevino found the atmosphere stifling and exclusionary. He called Roberts a dictator. The friction became deeply personal when Roberts reportedly demanded that Trevino's driver and caddy use the service entrance rather than the main gates. Trevino did not argue about it. He simply stopped showing up. He skipped Augusta in 1970, 1971, and 1974, years when he was at the peak of his game. When he did play there, he refused to use the champion's locker room or set foot in the clubhouse. He would arrive at the course, walk past the entrance, sit on the edge of his car trunk in the dusty gravel parking lot, and change into his golf shoes in full public view. It was a quiet act, but anyone who understood what it meant could not miss it. Even in 1989, when he led after the first round at age 49, he still did it. He was not asking Augusta for permission to belong. He already knew he did not need it. Then, on July 29, 1975, everything changed. During the Western Open at Butler National Golf Club near Chicago, a severe thunderstorm stopped play. Trevino and his playing partners sought shelter near the 13th green beside a water hazard called Teal Lake. They had removed their shoes to reduce the risk from their metal spikes, but their clubs were still nearby. Trevino was standing close to his bag. Lightning struck the lake. The electrical discharge traveled across the wet ground and up the metal shafts of the clubs. The force knocked Trevino into the air. The current exited through his back, caused severe burns, and stopped his heart. He survived, but the lightning did permanent damage. The current burned through his spinal tissue and left him with chronic, debilitating back pain that never fully went away. He underwent major back surgery in 1976. For years after that, he played through pain that would have ended most professional careers before they had a chance to recover. He adapted his swing to protect his lower back, relying more on his legs and hip drive. In 2004, he had titanium spacers inserted between his damaged lumbar vertebrae to relieve pressure without fusing the joints together. That choice preserved his rotational mobility, and that mobility let him keep swinging. In 1984, 9 years after the strike, at age 44, Lee Trevino won the PGA Championship at Shoal Creek, his 6th major title. He defeated Nicklaus again, one more time, on one of the biggest stages. A man struck by lightning, carrying chronic spinal damage, with no academy behind him and no textbook swing to fall back on, won a major championship at an age when most professional players are already thinking about when to walk away. He turned 50 years old in December 1989 and joined the Senior PGA Tour. What followed was not a ceremonial farewell. It was a full demolition. In 1990, his first complete season on the senior circuit, Trevino became the first senior golfer to earn over $1 million in a single season. That total exceeded what Greg Norman, the top money winner on the regular PGA Tour that same year, took home. He went on to win 29 Champions Tour titles, exactly matching his 29 wins on the regular tour. That symmetry says everything. The man who never had a lesson, who learned his craft with a glass bottle and a taped handle on a municipal golf course, matched himself win for win across 2 separate tours spanning multiple decades. A lightning strike, 2 back surgeries, and a lifelong refusal to follow anyone else's rules. The thumbnail for this video says broken swing, unbroken record. That is the whole story in 4 words. Every expert who watched Trevino swing said the same thing. The stance was off. The wrist action was wrong. The ball flight should not have worked under real pressure. And yet, 6 majors said otherwise. 29 wins on the main tour said otherwise. 29 more on the senior tour said otherwise. Modern golf cannot build another Lee Trevino. The academies produce athletes who are powerful, technically precise, and beautifully coached from a young age. They are extraordinary. But there is no pathway from a cotton field to a driving range to a Dr. Pepper bottle hustle to the US Open. That specific path, shaped by that specific poverty and that specific proximity to wealth and that specific wind, does not exist anymore. The wind-built fade, the poverty-sharpened nerves, the military discipline, the parking lot shoe change ritual, the rubber snake at Marion, the chip-in at Muirfield. None of it can ever be copied because the life that created it cannot be copied. He did not come from golf. He came from a place the sport was never supposed to reach him.
And when it finally did, he did not change to fit it. He did not soften his game or his personality or his parking lot shoe ritual for anyone. He made the sport change to fit him. If this story moved you, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe so you never miss the next one.